welcome everyone to a very special discussion today hosted in partnership with Riverbed. My name is Elias. I lead the strategic growth business at Mastercard, and I'll be the moderator for today's session, where we'll be discussing how banks are evolving in the newly emerging contactless and digitally driven environment, what approaches they will take to be able to deliver a seamless experience to the customer, and how they can keep up with this evolution in order to thrive in a world where the dinosaurs and the unicorns are battling. So as we know, the technological advancements and innovations have undoubtedly pushed the banking sector to undergo this rapid transformation in order for the banking sector to be able to match and keep up with the heightening customer expectations that have been categorized by the on-demand economy. This is one, which means customers can conduct any service or any transaction from the palm of their hand. The always available economy. There's no more working hours, 9 to 7, 9 to 6. It's a 24/7 economy year round. And third, a frictionless and seamless experiences economy, where any service or transaction is expected to be completed with the minimum steps, swipes, clicks, etc. As a result, this has made us move into, or pushed us to move into a digital first world. And as we're embracing and appreciating its possibilities, because a lot of possibilities and opportunities are mushrooming from this digital first world, it becomes easier for us to see the future where the physical and the digital are merging seamlessly. We've also been witnessing, as a result, one of the key use cases is the rapid growth of digital payments, alongside and driven by definitely the increased internet and smartphone penetrations that have become enablers, and that's why contactless is growing at rapid speed, driven by this growth in this smartphone and internet penetration, but also the tailwind that we got from the COVID-19 pandemic, where social distancing has become the new norm. We saw central banks increasing the limits on contactless. For instance, in UAE was 300 dirhams, today it's 500 dirhams on contactless if you still use your card. So the move to contactless was definitely spearheaded and provided the tailwind from the COVID. And this moved the experiences to be touchless, seamless, from your couch, from the palm of your hand, transferring money, conducting e-commerce transactions, and created a sentiment which we were able to get a litmus test of through a survey that we conducted at Mastercard, called the Consumer Sentiment Survey that we conducted in 2020 in the midst of the COVID storm. A couple of data points that I would like to share with you, and I think they're important, is that 70% of the participants said they now use contactless. This is a major growth. 84% agreed that contactless is a cleaner way to pay, of course, because as we know, cash is dirty, it exchanges hands. And 81% said that they will continue to use contactless post-pandemic. This is what allowed the contactless payment to grow at 10 times faster than in-person payment methods. We feel this whole development in the digital banking and the new digital first world, where the old financial services sector is being disrupted and reborn in a new world that is enabled by technology. That's why today, we have a great panel that I'm very happy to have with us of industry experts with whom we will be talking in detail about the roles that banks play in this digital payments ecosystem as the interest for physical branches and cash dispensing ATMs is falling, and how they can scale up for the work from anywhere models and seamless customer experience, how they might deal with the enhanced experiences of applications to continue to deliver on the best-in-class, seamless, as I mentioned earlier, less swipes, less contacts, while adopting an OpEx-driven infrastructure model. Banks and many players in today's world are moving from the CapEx model, where investments in infrastructure and technology used to be the prime. Now they're moving into an OpEx with the help of SaaS, PaaS, IaaS, etc. I'm therefore delighted to welcome our esteemed panelists of speakers to the session, Mr. Yuri Misnik, the Group Chief Technology Officer at First Abu Dhabi Bank, Gary Duggan, Vice President for Technology and Solutions for the MEA region from Riverbed Technology, Mujahid Zadjaly, General Manager of IT and Operations from Bank Nizwa, Dr. Reda Helal, Chief Strategist, Payments and Technology at Network International, and finally, Naru, the Chief Operations Officer at the Dukhan Bank / Barwa Bank. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being with us today. We'll start right off with Yuri. Yuri, as I mentioned in the intro, the traditional banking model is gradually declining. Virtual banking is becoming the new norm. So as the CTO of one of the leading banks and largest banks in the region, how have you been able to evolve? What were the key challenges, and what experiences can you share with us about this transformation journey that you have embarked on?
Thanks, Elias. I think that's first of all very happy to be here, and that's a great question to discuss. I mean, we talk about 2 hours what we've been doing, but fundamentally there are a few things which I see are shaping and are driving our sort of technology and also implementation strategies. One is sort of the big focus on, as you said, sort of, I don't call it virtual banking, I would call it digital banking, but pretty much means banking everywhere. And one big thing there is that customer expects things to work everywhere, right? So there's a big focus and a big, how to say, a lot of time and effort is spent especially in the traditional bank space, to make sure things work. Things work all the time, 100% of the time. They're not being disrupted. A lot of technological elements, whether it's cloud, whether it's sort of more resilient or more robust services designs going into that. So that's a big thing. So make sure things work. Because when you open your device, when you start paying, when you are trying to, manage your card, so mobile phone, we expect these things to operate well. I think that's one thing. The second thing, which again is not visible, but a big sort of underlying rock, is security, and focusing on the fact that customers, security is at top of every concern we have, on top of everyone's mind when we're doing anything with the bank, whether we're deploying a new service or doing any sort of operational processes. So make sure customers feel secure and their data is secure and protected. But the third thing, and probably it's not the right order, but it's sort of different dimensions. The third dimension is the customer experience themselves. And we've seen quite a lot of focus, and we're doing quite a lot of focus on making sure that we get away into sort of real-time processing, real-time behaviors of the customer, whether it's account opening and account maintenance activities, whether it's payments and services which are value add to payments. For example, we've launched a very interesting offering called Super Surprises, which allows you to pretty much connect the act of spending money with some sort of promotional offerings coming from other vendors, and using big data and using analytics to sort of offer it at the point of sale to a customer. So which adds a lot of value to a customer, but also adds a lot of value to the merchants, because we can drive this behavioral change there. And the last thing which I would mention around this customer sort of set/technological advances, we definitely see a massive move towards the branchless experiences, especially in the retail space. So pragmatically speaking, there's no reason to have branches right now. Some customers we see still believe that they want to come to branch and they come to have a conversation, but regulatory, technologically, and maturity-wise, we can pretty much offer 100% of retail services through a combination of mobile devices, maybe and sort of ATMs and some sort of virtual banking services. So we're seeing it as a big push. We're definitely moving in that direction, and that's definitely driving through. And the last bit I want to mention is obviously cloud was being a major focus for us, an ability for us to utilize not just cloud as an infrastructure provider, but cloud platform services and a cloud software services, whether it's coming from any of the big hyper providers or smaller providers coming in. That's sort of a massive move, which we've seen in the last 2 years, and we are actively pursuing it. I think we're now sort of approaching about 10% of our workloads running on public cloud, and we're sort of accelerating these dynamics as well.
Great, thanks for that. I mean, Mujahid, given these trends, which I'm sure you're also witnessing, how are you going about it? What are some of the strategies? What are some of the challenges? How are you mitigating it?
With Bank Nizwa, I mean, while this pandemic started, what was happening is we wanted to avoid customers visiting the branches, actually, to have a contactless touch point or environment for our customers. And we redesigned our entire mobile banking application in order to make it more convenient and more easy and more user-friendly for the customers to do their transactions. I mean, we made the mobile banking available for them to do their payments instantly. We made them to, be able to do to open an account, additional account, while using your mobile banking. You don't have to come and visit the branch and submit a lot of papers and do all of that, which will really take. It's too expensive. You know, the transaction is expensive. You need staffs to service the customers, and you need back office to do the processing. So instead of that, I mean, we provided all of these enhancements in our mobile banking with our instant payments, with a lot of other facilities whereby they can sit at home and they can do banking without coming and bothering the staff, without thinking of their statements. Everything is available for them in a very secured and convenient way. In addition to this, what also we did is we thought the employees also, they need to be equipped with these kind of solutions. So we, in order to serve the customer and give the customer a good customer experience and a good customer, the convenience part, we need the employees also to feel this so that they can market this well. So we also released an app for the employees whereby they can see their salary details, whereby they can apply their leave without coming to the HR department, without submitting a form, basically. So it was all contactless. And in addition to this, we thought also to reduce the calls which are coming and which are being our call center, which was bombarded by a lot of calls in a day. So what we did is by offering all of these services, like activating the account and getting some details from the call center, all of these were brought in the app. And what happened for eventually the number of calls actually got dropped, and then our call center started focusing on the sales instead of servicing and doing troubleshooting. So these were a couple of our experiences and our.
So you turned a cost center into a profit center.
Exactly.
A call center.
Our overall bank strategy is to grow the bank's balance sheet, and while growing the bank's balance sheet, we from IT and operations, we need to be more efficient, more convenient, and more secure. And when we be more efficient, we need to reduce the cost of transaction which is happening at the branches or at the back office. So while, if you want to reduce the cost of transaction at the branches and at the back office, you need to come up with these innovative solutions, which is at your mobile banking app or at your processes which are taking place while the transaction is happening. Instead of having 10 steps, let's say, for example, and if the financing is taking 1 hour, or I'm just giving an example, or 2 days, we reduce the steps and the number of days so that the cost of transaction reduces eventually, and which will actually boost the bottom line of the budget.
Great to hear that it's been actually, you turned what potentially could be a threat into an opportunity by redesigning some of the applications, some of the backend, turning some of the operations around, building on the technology. So this is great news. And Naru, would you agree that this is the same thing that happened with you, especially that Qatar is undergoing major transformation? The World Cup is coming up soon. You have a lot of potential demand that's going to come in. You need to be ready to cater for all these. Perhaps you can also share with us some of these experiences.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. It's my pleasure to be here. Now, we are also in the same field like Mujahid and Yuri, as a bank. But before I, get into what, we did or what we are doing, quick background, Dukhan Bank is a new name that we got, but we are not new to banking. We have been in banking for many years. And it was basically created as the first ever merger of two banks in Qatar. In 2018, International Bank of Qatar, which is one of the oldest banks in Qatar, 60 plus years in operation, decided to merge with a young dynamic bank called Barwa. And the merged entity was renamed last year as Dukhan Bank. Now, one of the things which happened, probably one of the positives of the pandemic, is this: it actually forced the issue. It actually set the tone and accelerated the pace of digitization. We started our digitization journey in around April of last year, and when pretty much everybody was grappling with this complete, uncertainty, and we decided that we don't have the luxury of time over here, because this was a mega disruption, and like any disruption, one good thing is it levels the playing field. So, and it also offers you a sliver of opportunity, a small window of opportunity. So we seized it with both hands, and we worked on a digital transformation agenda, which was two phase. First phase was get on with it. We didn't have the luxury of going shopping, buying new toys, tools, new core banking app or mobile omni-channel, what have you, right? So we decided that we already have it in our estate. Let us try and optimize what we have. Fortunately, the previous year, as part of the merger, we had already gathered a lot of insight from our customers. So what we agreed was that it is not about what you can do. It is more about what we must do. And we basically focused our energies on what our customers told. So that insight helped us. Having said that, I must say that, the field of banking, I've been in banking, this is my third decade. And I think the nature of relationship between the customer and banks have changed quite dramatically. I recollect when I joined way back in late 80s, banking was simple and life was simpler, right? And basically, you can define banking customer relationship as 363, i.e. accept deposits at the rate of 3%, lend the same money to some other set of customers at 6%, hit the golf course by 3 p.m. Life was very simple, right? Whereas if you see now, I think, those days it was just a question of acquiring customers and keeping them with you and having a long-term relationship like marriage. I think today it is no longer a marriage. The customer-banker relationship is more like a dating relationship, i.e. The customers have enormous options, and the pressure is more on the banks. How do you actually keep them engaged? And it is not about throwing more and more technology and new toys and glitz them with new showy things. It's more about how do you actually stay connected? How do you actually ensure that they are engaged with you, and how do you actually make them feel more comfortable, safe, secure, seamless in using your tools to do what they want to do with the bank. It's all about self-service. It's about trying to migrate stuff from the bank or the traditional counters into the customer's hand, and the customer needs to feel happy and he should enjoy doing it. So our effort has been pretty much in that direction. It's just a journey and it's never a destination. It's a continuous improvement game. So what have we done? So on the retail side, we had identified close to about 55 changes that was important because that mattered to our customers. So on the mobile banking app, we got cracking on that, and we have been able to insert close to about 50 odd changes, which is going to significantly enhance the customer experience. We've also invested in our branches. We are investing in a smart kiosk. We are investing in some interactive, intelligent ATM machines. We've got an all singing, dancing, virtual assistant, which is going to come in, which is a significantly upgraded version of a chatbot, which basically, again, makes the customer feel more comfortable, happy dealing with us, and they are able to do pretty much 90% of what they expected the bank or a call center to do it for them. They are able to do it by themselves. Then on the in Dukhan Bank, it is not just about retail. If you look at our balance sheet, we are a significant corporate and a private bank too. So we thought this is the time for us to actually indulge and invest in those areas as well. So we have looked at We've got our payment gateway already sorted. It's ready. We have got our tokenization technology already rolled out. So, and in Qatar, Apple Pay is yet to come, but we are geared as a bank. Will be, inshallah, will be one of the first banks to roll it out whenever we get the approval from the central bank. We were one of the first banks to roll out the wearables in terms of Fitbit and Garmin Pay on the sports day. On the payment space, i.e., moving money from point A to point B, we have got a raft of capabilities. So we've got we've got arrangements with exchange houses, correspondent banks, which pretty much covers most of the territories that our customers move money out to. We are also exploring a blockchain-based remittance technology, which will be one of the first. That again makes it simpler, faster, cheaper, and smoother. Yeah, so we are actually exploring in myriad of areas. We have got, of course, remote deposit capture. We have got the point of sale terminals, which are all something relatively new in this marketplace.
You went all out on the technology. You went all out on enhancing the technology so you can converge your service lines, whether it is the private banking, investment banking, the retail, to ensure that you have, as Mujahid also mentioned, lower cost to service from a customer perspective, and ensuring that you turn this into an opportunity once again. I'll come back to you as the three banks that we have with us, because I would like to see the pace that you're going at, if you are able to keep up with the fintechs that are emerging and keeping the banks on their toes. But I would like to go to Gary and as a tech player, what have been some of the guidances on the technologies and the upgrades and the digital transformations that you've been providing to the banks in order for them to provide the best-in-class service, especially that network is always blamed. Oh, my app is slow, I'm not able to. So maybe you could share some of these insights with us.
Yeah, Elias, you hit the nail right on the head. The network is always blamed, but it was really insightful. Listening to the banks, I mean, the pace of change is phenomenal at this point in time. Everyone's going through redesigning their customer journey, digitizing their platforms, and change has never been faster than it is at this point in time. We've also got fintech companies entering the market space as well. So some of your traditional revenue streams are under attack from fintech. I think the stat from recent research from Davis Hickman Partners was 75% of UAE and Saudi use a mobile phone for payments as well. So that's obviously driving more traffic and more complexity in the network. So what we do is really focus around visibility and performance for customers. So that's going to be high fidelity visibility and performance information, so you can see every packet, every flow. And why is that important? That's really important for you in this really complex environment, that you don't miss anything. And also it enables your security teams and everyone else in your environment to share this federated data. And we do that for every user, no matter where they are, and for every app, no matter where that is served as well. So clearly we're talking to customers around, how can you get high fidelity information? How can you federate that information across your organization to really help with your transformation and help with data that's important for your customer experience, not just resolving issues quickly. I mean, that's a stability. Operational excellence is a given, and you need operational excellence and security in order to make these pivots that you're making today. So we'll talk a bit more about it, but that's our starting point.
Perhaps Gary, you can shed some more light on the visibility part when you say you create visibility.
Yeah.
So how is that done?
Yeah, from a visibility platform, we have a heritage in this space, going back a long time now, since the turn of 2000, just after, where we're actually looking, using our technology to look at every packet, every flow on the network, and infrastructure management data as well. So that will be that command line interface, information WMI, or SNMP data. And then we aggregate that data together and present that back in a portal to customers so they can make business decisions. Clearly, we're moving to AI. So how can we automate that and have self-healing networks because as you said earlier, the people costs are, the biggest cost here, and obviously getting the knowledge into the team in order to drive that resolution, it is a heavy lift in some cases. So we're looking at how we can take that data, use it through AI to consolidate that event correlation, and then drive that into your event management tool so you can self-heal.
Great. So on the technology part, perhaps we can move to Network International that's been using its technology to provide cashless payments, and the importance of cashless as well coming from Mastercard myself. We've seen from the studies that my team at Strategic Growth and I have been doing around the impact of cashless on GDP. It can save up to 4% in costs of GDP, and now this is ever more relevant and prevalent with COVID and the growth, as I mentioned earlier, of cashless and contactless growing at unprecedented rates. So, Dr. Reda, perhaps you can share with us how you've been putting your technology, your tools, your network into full play to ensure you're providing the cashless payments to the wider network.
Thank you very much, Elias. And actually, I would like to start with that. Like, I will add something different to the mix here, because we are talking about the consumer from an issuing perspective. So we will shed more light on the other side, which is acceptance as well, right? So if you look at the process holistically, where you have more users getting into using contactless, and we have seen the dramatic effect of the pandemic and how everyone is moving from the in-store purchases into the online, the e-commerce. So we have done multiple initiatives in the recent year, but that enabled us to go smoothly through the transition of the pandemic, right? So if you look at the acceptance perspective, and you look at the risk associated with that, right? So you have influx, inexperienced users that are coming into new space that they are using, and actually, in some cases, through the lockdown last year, they were forced to use contactless or even e-commerce platform to do their day-to-day groceries and everything that they have to. So from that perspective, we have approached it the process holistically, starting from how we are enabling the digital onboarding process for SME merchants to come along the journey. That will accelerate the process, that will reduce the human intervention, and which will result in less error in the process. Also, that will enable me as a technology empowerment house to respond faster to consumers. And that resulted in having within 24 hours, that will enable SME merchants to transact, to have the POS virtually, or to have the conventional POS as well, right? But from that perspective, I would like also to throw another angle to the mix, which is the user experience, right? So we are all talking about the technology, we are talking about the platform, the evolving nature of the business that we are in. And the pace that we are seeing, as everyone has stated, is not like unprecedented. What we are doing with that, we are focused on the technological part and the platforms and the new QR codes, wallets, all the digital transformation initiatives that, like, all the esteemed guests here spoke about. But what about the user experience? What about the elements related to the risk as well? And we have seen with all the influx number, we have seen on the other side increased number of risk associated with it, right? So in a recent study that was done by Global Data last year, you see that the average consumer that have seen some fraudulent transaction while they are using their e-commerce is quite more in this region, Middle East and Africa, compared to global, not even the more mature markets. So for example, Nigeria, I have 26% of consumer who have experienced some fraudulent transaction. In UAE, 24%, South Africa, 23%. If I'm talking about the global, right, it's about 16%. If I'm talking about more mature market like Nordics, South Korea, it's 5%. So social engineering will come into effect. It's not only what we are doing in terms of fraud prevention or real-time monitoring tools, but also how can we educate, how can we bring awareness to the end consumer to do that. Unfortunately, we have seen lots of banks recently, especially here in the UAE, we have seen lots of banks having marketing campaign that they are talking about, like, be aware and don't do that. And like, so we are helping each other in that environment, and also creating more awareness to the end consumer.
Speaking of fraud and the importance of how we create better experience, we've seen a surge in the number of attacks, cybersecurity attacks during the COVID, because everyone was working from home. The whole world was operating digitally and from phones and laptops. So perhaps we start with Yuri. You can share with us, I mean, what have been some of the key initiatives you've taken to make sure that the customer's transactions are secure, the customer's data is secure? What's your approach around data and cybersecurity?
I think, talking about security and particular approach, I probably don't going to go into sort of a lot of details there, but I think that the key point here is that we don't necessarily have a specific initiatives. I think we do security, and we do security improvement work pretty much every day of the year, and sort of it continues. The most important thing, as we've started seeing, is that as we've been expanding our services outside of our traditional data center, so we've started consuming services and capabilities running in the large cloud providers, of focusing on consistency of logs and consistency of control panel for security, so we can have observability of what's happening across our environments. We have a meaningful configuration baselines. We have a proper sort of threat detection and intrusion detection, intrusion protection services, not just sitting in our data center where we have sort of the physical, an illusion of a physical security, but also make sure that sort of we apply the top of the class controls in every environment we run. And a lot of the stuff which we're doing in the last couple of years is focusing around automated detection and automated prevention. So effectively, it's becoming much easier to do it in the cloud as well, where you are focusing on services which allow you to find deviation from the baseline, whether it's deviations based on the just mistakes of the administrators, or deviations based on some unidentified actors in the networks, and correct it automatically without necessarily running a big sort of human analysis process. So we're investing in a lot into these tools and mechanisms to help us drive this type of things. And we're also working with the large number of vendors and third-party vendors, modern third-party vendors, also modern security technology providers. Companies like Ducktrace, for example, where we see how do we go and use them more consistently across the estate, and sort of improve our posture. That's pretty much it. So effectively, the security work always continued, but what we're now realizing is that a lot of the security best practices which we can get from the cloud and the controls and elements of the security patterns which we use there, we're taking them from the cloud and applying it on premises. So we are sort of more seeing sort of the right to left proliferation of things.
The common question that comes up every now and then is that when you rely more on the cloud, doesn't that expose you and make you a bit more vulnerable? So maybe Gary, you can take this one, especially that the concept of the cloud is that it's not only on-premise security and fraud detection and prevention, but it also has to be at the premise of the service provider of the cloud. So Gary, please shed some light on that, and I'll go back to the other.
Yeah, of course. Of course. Actually, we've seen, from the security side, people adopting cloud even more because, having the right capability and skills inside your organization to do threat detection, and some of the investment that cloud providers are actually making to protect you in this space, is actually beneficial as well. So, one thing's for sure. I mean, the threat, the threat surface, the security surface is enhanced. We've got tier upon tier of applications on the network, and now you've got all of your users at home. So it is expanding, your attack surface. What we believe in is, although we're not a security vendor, we absolutely track every packet, every flow. So you do need high fidelity data when you go into forensics. And you will, security is something, we're under attack all the time. We will all face an attack. It's how we deal with that and how we have the high fidelity data to resolve that issue quickly. We can also give insight into the cloud as well. So it's not just on-prem, but it's cloud and hybrid environments that you need both the performance and visibility data in those spaces in order to really address the issues that we're seeing today.
Thanks for shedding some light on that. Mujahid, I'll go to you, and I'm sure it's been the level of security threats have increased also at your side. So perhaps you can share with us some of the adaptation that you had to go through and the need for speed to react and be ready to overcome these challenges.
Yes. So what we did is when we started the work from home, when we gave the work from home solution to our employees, and when the pandemic started, getting more and more, hot for everyone. So we provided we enhanced the app and we gave multi-factor authentication and functionalities on the app, and then we introduced de-tagging functionalities on the app in case if the app is if the mobile is stolen, so the other person will not be able to access it unless he does the de-tagging, and then he has to go through the credentials once again. And we started increasing the vulnerability assessments, which we keep doing internally and externally with the security vendors. And we engaged a third-party provider who can give us the SOC services, so security operating center.
Yeah, that became very common. I've seen that with a lot of our partners.
To monitor the network and data center 24/7 in case if there are any attacks or any any kind of threat is coming. And at the same time, we started building our predictive capabilities, which we have in the bank, whereby we introduced the endpoint detection and response capabilities and sandboxing whenever the traffic comes or anything comes from the internet gateway. It does not go to the internal network unless it is completely filtered and checked, and then the traffic is released. We also introduced the ICAP, the content adaptation protocol for the corporate customers, where when they are trying to upload some documents using our internet banking platform, so that also gets all those files or contents which are coming, they get filtered, then only they are processed. So we have taken a lot of measures in protecting and securing our customers' data and the bank's systems.
So if you want to look a bit forward into, now we touched on the new reality, which is digital first world, the threats and opportunities that come from this new world. So looking a bit into the future, Nara, I'll go to you. What are some of the key things that you believe will continue to be opportunities for you, and especially working with fintechs, collaborating with fintechs, and what would your approach and main focus, and let's say the North Star, what would your North Star be moving forward on that front, especially that, as we said, Vision 2030 is in full play in Qatar, World Cup is coming, disruption is everywhere, there are new regulation for fintech sandboxes in Qatar. Perhaps you can shed some light on that. Sure,
thank you for that question. So, next year is going to be a big year for Qatar. As you guys know, there is a FIFA World Cup. And last year, Dukhan Bank, we were in partnership with Qatar FinTech Hub. We were one of the sponsors, which when we invited about 30 odd fintechs from different parts of the world, largely in the financial space. And the idea was basically to raise our awareness about what is happening out there in different parts of the world, and give them an opportunity to come and showcase and make a pitch. And that was quite insightful, I must confess, because it was also refreshing, because there are lots that's happening in this world. And so it basically, we narrowed that down to about half a dozen different areas, wherein we felt that that is where the direction of travel is for this industry. So if you look at the payment space, again, wallets are happening. It's how clever are you? How quick are you to have something and ensure that your wallets are actually in place? So how do you ensure traffic into what you're building? We looked at on the AI space. I mentioned about we investing in a virtual assistant. Now, the AI tool that we are exploring basically helps us understand the customer's actual spend. It's very important to have a good understanding of the customer's insight. Because that will help us get a sense of the motivation of what the customer is doing and why is he actually sticking with you. So this AI tool actually gets into the weeds in terms of, suppose they use my plastic, right? So where are they spending the plastic? It is not just a debit in their statement, but actually what are the 4 or 5 items that made up that total, which gets debited to that account? So we are exploring that as well. We are also looking at some cloud-based infrastructure, which will help us, get even more efficient. Fortunately, I heard Yuri and Mujahid on the earlier question about cyber security. We are, it's a global problem. I think somebody said, a wise man, he said that there are only 2 kinds of companies: those that have been hacked and those that will be hacked again, right? So in this space, I think in the world of cyber, it is pretty much a case of catching up. So how do you actually raise the awareness? How do you, we have got a SOC in place. So when it comes to cloud, our foray has been only how do we try and optimize our efficiency, our network over here in Qatar. And it is all aimed at making, as I said earlier, the ease of transacting with Dukhan Bank simple, easy, safe, secure. That is the mantra which guides us. So there are plenty of opportunities available when it comes to, for the next year, the World Cup, the Fan ID, right? We are expecting close to about 2 million tourists coming in over here. How can you actually offer the fan a fabulous experience? It is not just landing here, but their banking needs, we could actually be a clever option. And how do they actually engage themselves during that tournament? So there are a lot of technological solutions that are currently in play. We are exploring that. All that I can say is watch the space. It's going to be fun.
Well, I'm definitely watching it. I'm in the middle of that space with the payment at Mastercard. So let's move on to payments, because you touched on a good point on the outlook for payments. So Dr. Reda, I mean, how have you been evolving your proposition to keep up with this growing demand, whether it's e-commerce, contactless, financial inclusion for individuals, financial inclusion for SMEs, helping them migrate to the e-commerce space? I think this is one of the key disruptions that have happened over the past few years, most prominently during 2020, because everyone had to go online from an SME perspective and from big corporates.
Absolutely, that's a great point, Elias. And actually, if you look at some of the dynamics that's happening here in the region, look at the Vision 2030 in Saudi as well, right? Like where we are trying to move from 20% cashless society to 70%, right? When you see the surge in the contactless here, but there is still a great room for improvement. So if you look at the card not present approval rate here, it's still way below the average globally. We are talking about 69% versus 84%, right? So the first thing is that we have adapted was investing in our own payment gateway, right? And I'm not talking about only the front end. So this holistically, from the digital onboarding that we spoke of, that enrolled to the SME merchants first, then moved to the e-commerce part of it, takes the user journey from the very initial interaction to the end of the journey, which is the consumer experience, right? So that takes a lot of points of interaction. Also, if you are talking about non-traditional payments entity and not only fintech, so we have seen a surge in the non-traditional payments entities. We have seen how many companies that are coming to the payment space. I'm not talking only about the social payments. I'm talking about, like, entities that were not in the payments whatsoever. They are gearing up for that because there is a huge potential. So you see that the transformation is happening very fast. But again, if you compare Middle East or Middle Eastern Africa to the global numbers, we are still having a great room for improvement. Apart from that, we've been working on a couple of initiatives of late to enable SME to transition smoothly. So, for example, the pay by link, WhatsApp payment, or on the other side, you are talking about, like, the plug and play payment, where you have in the e-commerce most of the challenges with merchants or the SME in particular, that they don't have the bandwidth, they don't have the capability or the resources to go the whole 9 yards to do investment and get resources to deploy that. So we have designed a simple e-commerce white label that will enable them, if they want to go quickly, and then after that they can enhance the user experience throughout the journey itself. So there are multiple initiatives that we have been associated with. It has been accelerated by the pandemic and 2020, but we can see that happening again 2021 and beyond.
Definitely. I mean, the work from home, the hybrid model of work from home, the digital and contactless, all these new trends have not only expedited the move from capex to opex using the cloud, but it has made it the only way forward. So Gary, maybe you can share with us some of the success factors or success stories that you've seen working with financial services in the Middle East, and also what would be some of your guidance and recommendations to ensure that everyone like me today is working from home and is able to have this Zoom call in a high quality?
So from a work from home perspective, we're seeing, I think by 2024, we'd expect to see 600 million people on the planet work from home. So that's a phenomenal amount of people actually sitting in their office of one and communicating with our end customers in this space. So we have some tools and techniques in order to accelerate the performance of working from home. In our heritage, WAN optimization is part of our key heritage, and we've extended that to the edge, to the end user. So whether that is client or SaaS acceleration, or working specifically with application vendors like Microsoft to give specific SaaS acceleration on their platform. So Office 365 acceleration is another part of our portfolio. We tend to start with visibility, because if you can't see it, you can't measure it. And if you can't measure it, you certainly can't improve it or even secure it. So I would say start with visibility, put that platform in place so that you can understand where your pinch points are, and then address it. And as a company, we can address that with acceleration, whether that be at the edge or in the data center. So we're working with some of the people on this call, obviously. We're working with large banks in Saudi as well, where we're reducing traffic over their WAN link to help them reach their RPO and RTO objective. And we continue to see that as a massive expansion of the work that we're doing.
Great. So perhaps we still have around 10 minutes. I would like to open it up for some of the questions that we're getting. So the first question that we have, is there any change in banking system in future by machine, robots, or people? Do we see any changes in the banking system in the future with the introduction of machine, robots, or people? Who would like to take this question?
Yeah, okay.
Sure, Mujahid.
I think there will be a transformation. There will be, because a lot of digital banks are coming now. Every bank is enhancing the digital touch points. So more and more transformation and contactless will come in the banking sector. So today, if you want to open an account, you have to go and visit the branches. Tomorrow, this will not be required. If you want to withdraw money, so you don't need to use money, because even the all with these contactless cards and the payments, with the POS machine. You don't need to go and physically, basically, be present and do this. And then financing. I mean, many banks have already started introducing financing services at the tip of your finger, at the mobile banking app. So a lot of changes are going to take place in the banking sector. So more and more STP, I would say instant STPs are going to be introduced in the on the mobile banking apps. And so all of this will be changing internally. I mean, the servicing the customers at the operations or the risk department, there will be lots of reduction for some of these critical departments which are there, because everything will be available at the tip of the finger. So maybe these departments, you will have to structure them in a way that maybe we can use them for the AI, for the performance, for something totally different, because they are not going to do the housekeeping or booking or releasing the loans. All of that is going to be available instantly at the tip of your finger.
Thank you for that. Another question is from Hussam. Thanks, Hussam Shadbiri. AI is now a building block in digitization. How do you manage the risks of AI in banking, such as the bias that comes with it, black box AI models that cannot explain their decisions, and so on?
I can probably jump in for a little bit here.
Sure.
I think what's happening now, and this was a few conversations in the last 3 months about AI, and I think there were some public conferences about that. We're still not seeing unsupervised AI models making meaningful or significant decisions in the industry. We're seeing a lot of AI driven around things like recommendations, next best offer, et cetera, et cetera. And actually, even the people who are leaders in AI adoption, if you think about Amazon, think about sort of the leaders there and the big technology companies, they're still even explaining that they're still not making big decisions on AI. There's more of an experience level thinking. So, and the recommendation right now, I think, is that yes, use your machine learning models, use AI in your assistance journey, assisting you to make decisions faster or better. But for something substantial, such as credit decisioning, fraud, risk, etc., you still need some sort of a supervised model which sits around it. I think this will change in the next sort of 3-4 years. I think we'll see more and more trust in the machine learning models for simpler use cases first and more complex use cases future. I'm not sure whether we go to a completely, non-human driven credit decision making, especially in the large credits. Microlending maybe, but if we think about the big mortgages, etc., because again, there's a lot of research happening around bias. And you've probably seen some announcements like people are looking at the bounties announced for the bias detection and algorithms, but it's still more an art rather than a science, right? So, and regulators want us a science, not an art. So we're still sitting in this interesting world. But in terms of helping us to improve efficiency, lower the cost, assist people in making fast decisions, maybe even in things like sanctions checking, etc., is definitely happening, and we're seeing it in a lot of things. And for personalization, for relevance, for experience optimization, of course, I think everyone on this panel is probably using some sort of a machine learning algorithms to drive that, and we'll see it more in the future.
So you touched on the 2 questions, actually, Yuri. That's great. So very quickly, perhaps, Dr. Reda, you can touch on if any of the AI solutions for personalization are being used at Network International for payments.
So at this point of time, I'm not talking about only AI in terms of what we are deploying in the machine learning that Yuri has touched upon, but also from the data analytics perspective, right? So this is one element is that we didn't what we are talking about. 1/3 of the payment revenues, the value-added services will come from data analytics, and this is pretty much you are heavily dependent on the AI in that nature as well.
Yeah.
So it's a wider pool that we are starting to see. This is the tip of the iceberg, and we started to invest heavily in the data lakes and analytics to be able to give both for banks and for retailers and merchants these kind of services.
Great, thanks for that. There are a couple of other questions that would be great for Gary and Naru, if you could answer them by typing the answer in there, so everyone can get their questions answered, because we're running out of time. And for the remaining 3 minutes, I would like to thank the panelists for this exciting discussion that they provided us today. We spoke about how important it is for banks to step up and match the heightened customer expectations, and how they're doing this by redesigning the mobile banking applications, redesigning the back end, leveraging cloud, ensuring that the right security is put in there to mitigate the cybersecurity threats, that the tools such as threat detection, automation detection, and prevention, of course, in-house, how some banks such as Mujahid are using SOCs, service provider, in order to complement whatever cybersecurity threats they're being faced with, and enhance that through third-party provider. We also spoke about the need to move very quickly in order to meet these expectations, and the new services, let's say, that are being converged, which is also something Naru touched on, how they are converging their different business lines in order to make sure that they're lowering the cost to service, or the cost of acquisition for that matter. Also, how they can maximize the revenue/profit, but in essence, how they can maximize the customer lifetime value. Investing in technology, leveraging the cloud, ensuring that what may seem as a threat for the banks is now being employed as an opportunity in order to also compete with the fintechs that are, as we know, more nimble, more aggressive, and more hungry to thrive and succeed in these markets. And how the 363, which is 3% deposit, 6% interest, and 3PM will be home, which was a luxury for banks in the past, is now a luxury for the customers, because it's now the customers who have the upper hand, and the banks have to stay on their toes, not only from a customer's expectations, but from the competition. This is all exciting. This is all enthusing and motivating for everyone to. You mentioned, Nari, you've been in this space for 30 years. You're not now in a phase where you need to rest. Now you need to reinvent yourself. So one of the key things that we've seen, or we continue to see with our partners at our company Mastercard, is that talent is at the heart of all of this. While technology is the tool, the talent is what we need to continue to invest and to continue to sharpen the tip of the spear to succeed in this VUCA world that is very exciting and that keeps us working now 12 to 15 hours a day. So I would like to thank once again the panelists that came from FAB, Nizwa Bank, from Network International, definitely also from Dukhan/Barwa Bank, and to thank Forbes Middle East for organizing this panel, and the exclusive partners Riverbed, presented by Gary today. It's been a very exciting panel. Thank you for making it insightful and for sharing some great insights. I appreciate everyone's time from the attendees' perspective for joining us. Thank you for that. And stay tuned. We will be having more discussions, because digital is the new world. So, and we continue to demystify it and better understand it. So stay tuned. Thank you once again, and have a great afternoon, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.